Hi everyone, this is Jack. A while back, I posted a Reddit post on Passport Bros talking about my dating experience in Korea and how good or bad it was from the perspective of an Asian guy. And it got a ton of comments, a ton of views. I think in places I would rather not have them reshare it. And then there's a few misunderstandings as well. So I decided to make this video to kind of like first show off what I look like, who I am, to give you a better reference for like why my experience was the way it was in Korea, and also to be engaging and probably start a YouTube channel to basically help guys to go in Asia to meet and date girls, and the bits of advice to like do so while you're in the country. So like military guys, expats, digital nomads, generic passport bros and so forth. And yeah, so this video would probably be based on how to meet girls in Korea as a start, and I'll probably be releasing other videos to talk about more Korea in the future as well. So starting out, there's a post I made. It got like 200 comments and I think like 100,000 views. I don't know if I can see the analytics, but like it got super popular, and I was like, I still have guys reaching out to me about the posts asking for advice because they're coming from Korea, so I decided to make this video, and then I'll probably share it to guys who are asking for help and hoping they get a lot out of this. Part is I'll talk a little about myself. I'm Vietnamese American. I was actually born in Vietnam, but I grew up mostly in a little bit California, a little bit in Washington State, Florida, Georgia. Family moved around a lot, and yeah, I'm bit, you can tell from my voice I'm basically American when it comes to my upbringing. I don't have an accent. I don't remember much about Vietnam. I can speak a little Vietnamese, and I visit Vietnam often actually, but I don't consider myself Vietnamese in a nationality sense, only ethnicity sense. Other things about me is like I've lived in South Korea for about 3 to 4 years on and off, so like I would go there for 3 months and leave and so forth. And of course I've dated girls there, had a girlfriend or two depending on what your definition is. And I've also lived elsewhere in Asia, or nomadically going to a country for like 2 or 3 months and then leaving and going somewhere else, or going back to the States to work and so forth. Remotely abroad, this was really started right before COVID, and continued throughout COVID. Recently, I'm going to be working more in person, but I'll still be traveling pretty often as well. And yeah, in terms of my looks, you can probably take a look. I'm pretty average looking. I'm not super tall. I'm probably a little below average tall, but I'm not going to give my exact height. If you want to get my exact height, you can probably DM me or something. As for my advice, so today I want to talk about how to meet girls in Seoul, South Korea, specifically Korea, and specifically Seoul, just because Seoul is like probably the most well-known city in Korea, and probably the best city if you want to meet girls. If you're going to any other city, I'll probably cover that in a different video, because the environment is actually a little different, but the similarities in terms of where to go and what to do still apply. So the advice I give you here for Seoul will probably apply to other cities or towns in Korea. It's just not as good because the population is less, and the English speaking ability of the general population diminishes as you leave Seoul, just because Seoul is just so much more educated in terms of its workforce, and there's a lot of hagwons and English academies, and it's a lot more popular. And I've been to other cities in Korea, and typically Seoul does have a higher English speaking population, or the ability to speak in English in Seoul is just so much higher. To start out with, like, there's a few spots in Korea where you actually, or if you want to live there, the 4 main spots is Hongdae, Itaewon, and forgive me if I don't pronounce this correctly for any of the Korean speakers here. There's Gangnam, then there's, but I like to separate it out just because it's a little kind of a different vibe. It's like saying LA is different from Beverly Hills, when they're basically the same general area, but the fact that the environment is very different and very distinct really justifies the distinction between the two different areas, even though they're actually not too dissimilar, actually, now that I think about it. But yeah, so like for nightlife, you're trying to go to clubs, you're trying to go to bars. For tourists, I actually highly recommend Hongdae above Itaewon, especially if your goal is like meet girls, just because the spotlight and the attention has kind of moved over to Hongdae. I know this for a fact because I've gone to Itaewon and Hongdae during Halloween, and I can tell you Itaewon was unusually deserted during my last visit in Halloween in Korea. Whereas Hongdae was like packed. There was like lines and lines of people waiting for clubs and bars on the sidewalk as I was walking through Hongdae, and hopefully I have footage I'll edit in to kind of show you this. But yeah, it was super packed, super busy. So if you're looking to enjoy nightlife, you enjoy like a vibe that's probably a little more upbeat and not so depressing, I would definitely go to Hongdae. Also, Hongdae has really a different kind of age group than Itaewon. The differences are not too big, but Hongdae, you might actually find girls who are on the younger side just because it's a big college area. I think there's a university called Hongdae University nearby. So a lot of the people that are walking around typically are younger. You're talking college age. There are underage girls walking around. Obviously, there's underage people everywhere, technically, but it's mostly college girls that are going to the clubs and bars. If they're going to clubs and bars, and they get carded, obviously that'd be 19 in Korean age or 8 Western age, so it should be fine there. So if you're trying to meet girls, they seem young. If they're in a bar, then obviously they're probably not underage. So I actually like that about places Thursday Party, which is, I feel like, probably one of the best bars for just mingling with people. Whereas like other places are either the music's too loud, it's more of a club, or it's more of a sit-down restaurant and stuff like that, and there's more like dancing and so forth. So there's a great variety of nightlife in Korea, in Hongdae specifically. But I recommend these bars just because you can walk around, you drink, you can talk to people, talk to guys too, talk to girls, and it's not uncommon and it's not unexpected for you to go up to a group or a girl and say hi and then strike up a conversation, right? So I recommend Thursday Party just because of that. It's also super cool because you can look inside. There's a outdoor standing area that you can drink up and hang out there if it's not too cold. So you can see how the vibe is before you enter. And if it's, there's like people you actually want to talk to, you want to mingle, then you can. I've had many different experiences at this Thursday Party actually. So I've been there too frequently with friends, by myself, with people I just connected recently, and I've met a variety of girls there. I've met like Korean girls, Japanese girls actually coming to town with their friends. So like if I was much better at game, I would say it's a very good spot to go to find girls who may not actually be Korean but still very attractive, maybe coming from Korea, China, or other parts of the world actually. Another thing is, like I can mention, let's see, I'm going through this list now. Yeah, you want to meet college students, Hongdae is a place to go. If you want to meet tourists, younger foreigners, there's a lot of language exchange hagwons or like a Korean hagwons that teach. And when I say hagwon, I mean like academy, kind of like a in-person boot camp for certain things. Typically, Koreans take English classes, whereas like foreigners that come in would take Korean classes. Kind of like a school vacation or something, where they go to take like a 1 or 3 month program where they are learning Korean, but also just like doing random touristy things as well in addition. And a very common area for that is Hongdae. I know because I've gone to a Korean language course, which I actually recommend you do if you have the time to not work, but also have the money to pay for a program. And I'd say if you're like early 20s, mid 20s, it's a very good program to like be able to like make friends while you're in the country in case you're not super good at going out and meeting people and making friends that way. Yeah, so one thing to keep in mind is the clubs actually have age restrictions. Well, some of the clubs. I would definitely ask friends and people in line before you like wait 30 minutes to get into a club about the age restriction. If your goal is to meet girls, honestly, the clubs that do age restrictions, and keep in mind, this is if you're above 35, you can't go in. And I know this for a fact because I'm actually 35 and above, believe it or not. And I have been denied access to a club, even though I was with friends who were like early 20s, mid 20s. They got in, and I think they forgot about me as they got in. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I just go around, walk around the street, hang out there. Honestly, it's like these clubs are so loud and they're so more about dancing that it's really hard to do any pickup or meet girls or be able to talk to anyone. So I don't recommend even going to these clubs anyways. I'd rather go to the bars and go to maybe other clubs that are more open-ended and less populated, and I actually usually have better luck that way. There's also a little park area which I'll show you. Actually right now this is probably a good time for me to show you the map for Hongdae. Yeah, so this is Hongdae. This is the station right here. There's a lot of busking that happens on this street right here. There's a lot of stores, restaurants, some clothing shops on this street right here. A lot of small little shops. Here is where you get to some of the bars and clubs. I think Hongdae Thursday Party is on this street right here, right next to what I call the Triangle Park. It's a very popular park, which is pretty cool to like chill like it's a really cheap place to drink. Like you buy some drinks from like convenience stores for like $1 or $2, and then come out and like, chill there if you want to drink and chill with people. And there's a lot of people you can like go up, talk to, tons of foreigners you can just mingle with and befriend. Some Korean people groups are pretty open if you're nice and not drunk. I myself, just so you know, like I don't really drink, especially when I'm out trying to meet girls or, make friends with people, just because it gives you a better impression. You have a better chance of making a good impression if you don't drink, you don't smell like alcohol in your breath and so forth. And then of course there's a lot of clubs on this particular street right here. I think one is like NB1 or NB2 is a couple clubs where you can meet girls. I was able to meet a really hot Thai girl there one time. There's a few other clubs down this street here, but it's just this general area is more for clubs and so forth. The above area I showed you right here, this is more for like tourists and families and people to like see, K-pop dancing, K-pop singing, and what we call busking. Sometimes there's streams that run here. There's a ton of restaurants and sit-down places to go here. So it's a great touristy area, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of opportunities to bump into girls and, chat with them and, maybe find a date or a girlfriend, which I actually recommend over even going to a club. Honestly, like walking around, the foot traffic's high enough that it's actually better just to walk around and talk to girls on the way to club or going home and so forth than it is to actually, talk to girls in the clubs themselves. The only exception is maybe bars might be decent. The only issue is like a lot of the, obviously, bars, typically girls are with their friends and groups, so there's also a lot more things you have to manage and think about. Other things is, there's a general walking area over here. It's kind of like it used to be like a above ground train station. They put it all underground, and then they converted the space into like a park, like a really long park essentially. And this is a really good walking street. There's a lot of foot traffic here, so it's a great place to go to like see people who are hanging out. You might see a bored girl that's like walking pretty slowly. I recommend approaching her if you find that she looks like she's really bored and like, not knowing what to do essentially. A lot of people go out. I do it too. Sometimes I'm bored, I'm just walking around. It's a good way to exercise and kill time. Maybe like meditate and like think about what you want to do for the night and whatever. So yeah, I do recommend that. In general, I think that's probably it for Hongdae. There's also like nearby there's Sincheon and Sincheon has a few areas. I've never really hung out around the area, but it's also next to like another college and women's college actually. So it might be actually a good idea to hang out around here just because the area might have more girls. It's also cheaper too. So if you're a tourist and you want cheaper food, you can probably get the cheapest food in Sincheon rather than Hongdae. Hongdae is kind of a tourist trap, so a lot of the restaurants here are overpriced for what they typically priced at in other places in Seoul. So I would recommend going here for like, there are like, it's a very similar environment to Hongdae, except for it's more cheaper and more laid back than Hongdae itself. And you could easily walk between the two, although you can just take the train station in like 3 minutes or something. Most of the trains go pretty fast. And that's Hongdae. Up next is Itaewon. Let's go. Like I said, Itaewon's an older crowd. The attention has moved away from Itaewon more towards Apgujeong and Hongdae. This is obviously because of the terrible Halloween incident. There are clubs there. There's bars there. I'd say it's a lot less traffic now during the weekdays and the weekends. It used to be, obviously, used to be close to being packed. Not as bad as Halloween, of course. But it used to be that you can like talk to girls out in the street, and there was like tons of people to talk to. Thursday party was like jam packed. I've been there on weekends, and I can tell you that's definitely not the same case. I'd say it's definitely more worth it to go to Hongdae if you can. The only upside Itaewon is that like it's a lot closer to Gangnam, so it's very central. So if you're a tourist, you want to, Itaewon's strategically a good spot just because it's like in between Gangnam, which is in this area, across the Han River, there's Apgujeong in this area, and then there's Itaewon here, and it's kind of central in between the two spots you typically want to go to. And if you're a tourist, there's a lot of older places here, like the Hanbok Village, the palaces, and so forth are to the north. You also have, the touristy place? Myeongdong is a very common touristy place people visit, and it's just north of Itaewon. So I recommend Itaewon if you're a tourist, you want to party, you want to talk, you're okay with mingling with other foreigners, other tourists, and you're basically looking to do a lot of things because Itaewon is very central. It's strategically a good spot to book a hotel or an Airbnb in the area. The only downside, and here let me go to Itaewon. The only downside is Itaewon, you find more foreigners who are typically living there. This is not 100% like like you're not going to meet only foreigners in Itaewon, but I'd say above average you meet more foreigners who live in Itaewon, and you probably meet more military people since I think there's a small garrison nearby or something. But yeah, sometimes it used to be that I would see military uniform MPs patrolling around, making sure that military people weren't getting in trouble or they were staying out of banned areas. And I assume that's been an issue, and one of the reasons why a lot of the Korean nightclubs prevent foreigners enjoying is because they want to prevent military people from like entering the club. And there are experiences of other people, other guys that go into the clubs originally and then like get kicked out because they're maybe like attracting the wrong kind of attention or doing something that pisses off the owner or manager, or maybe just like getting the girls and like really making the owners and managers or other guests more jealous or something. Especially if you're a white guy or black guy and you're doing that and you're getting more attention to the girls, they're probably gonna do something. You're not worth that much money to them unless you're buying a table. And if you're not buying a table, then you're not worth much to them. In which case, they can just kick you out and lose maybe $10-$20, and it's not a big deal for them, right? So yeah, that's the case. That's the deal with Korea. You're not living in America. You can't. Even in America, it probably does happen too, but in Korea, it's not too uncommon for the owners and managers and whatever to kind of official to the bottom line or the profit. The good news is that Itaewon is kind of desperate in that like they aren't getting that much as many customers as they used to be. So like this is probably a lot rarer. In terms of Itaewon though, like I recommend Fountain. You can see there's Google that. Fountain is a really good place to hang out with. There's like 2 floors. There's like a down floor where it's more for dancing and you can mingle there. There's an above floor where you can do many other things. So there's a lot of space and there's a lot of places to like make out and like flirt with a girl and isolate the girls and so forth. I've seen it. This is not something that foreigners do. It's actually I see Korean guys do it as they're meeting and dating girls. I haven't been back in a while, so I can't tell you what's a good club. Also, the Hamilton's hotel is pretty good, but it can get kind of pricey. I'm sure there's other hotels around here you can just book that are just a block away. There's a party, which here there's a party's a chain, so there's one in Gangnam, one here, and one Hongdae, and many other places. There's in different cities as well. This one is not too bad. I've never had good experiences here, but I'm guessing it's not too bad. There's also a bunch of restaurants, the main street, and also on the side street. This is more of like the restaurant street, and I think there's like a Hooker Hill place here, but I would advise against going to any place there just because they can rip you off. There's a lot of trannies there, so I would definitely, unless you're up for that, I don't recommend being a customer for the area. It's very obvious if you ever walked up or down that hill that you can. It's pretty honestly advertised, so I would not bother with that area. But then there's a bunch of cool restaurants here. Not much to say. This is the general area. So this little path here is where all the bars and clubs are, up and down here. Right behind here is just a bunch of residential stuff. There might be some smaller bars or quieter bars and restaurants and stuff here, but I've never really gone out anywhere beyond this little street here. If you're wondering about like how the Halloween incident occurred and why, it's because a lot of the nightlife in Itaewon is concentrated in this general area here. So on weekends you might have like a really packed walking street. So these streets are pretty narrow. They're not probably like 2 lanes wide. At some points, other points are probably a little more open, but they're not really wide. And and the concentration of nightlife is just in that general area. It was very different from Japan and other places where like nightlife is more spread out and more open-ended. But yeah, this is like all it is to Itaewon. If you walk from one end to another, that's it, right? Like there's not like a giant area of like nightlife that you typically would find in other cities and other neighborhoods, even in Seoul itself. Speaking of which, next up we'll probably talk about Gangnam, and let's go to Gangnam, which is kind of my town or my part of town. So one thing to keep in mind is like Seoul itself is a very large metro area. So saying Seoul is a city is kind of like saying the LA area is a city, and that you include OC in that in the LA area, because Seoul has like outskirts cities, like there's Suwon, there's Anyan and so forth, Bucheon, and obviously there's Incheon, which is famous for the airport has it on an island. So this is like all one big metro area. Saying Incheon is definitely a separate city because like you probably won't ever go there if you live in Seoul. But there are like, even Seoul itself, there's like many little districts that have their own personalities and own like characteristics and like their own downtown area, so to speak. So like the Mapo area has a downtown area. It's actually over here with, you know, big skyscrapers and cities and stuff like that. But then there's Yeouido is like a business district and also the government centers like nearby around here, and that has its own downtown area. And so like there's many different like downtown areas that you would find in Seoul, whereas like San Francisco, you have, you know, one downtown area, but you also have Oakland, you also have San Jose and so forth. It's just we call it Seoul, even though it should probably be like 3 to 4 or 5 different cities, really. And you'll notice that once you like drive around and like start exploring the city. All right, so Gangnam itself, there's 2 important stations that I consider to be so technically everything here is Gangnam. I don't know what the boundary of Gangnam is or not, but if you go up to where Apgujeong is, that's technically part of Gangnam. There's like 2 different Gangnam stations, so don't be confused. There's the Gangnam office station, which is like over here, and then there's like the main Gangnam station that people refer to as Gangnam. This is probably the most, you know, the busiest station in Seoul and probably Korea. During rush hour, the trains will be packed. It'll be hard to even like go in the first train that arrives if you're in line during busy hour around 6 p.m. So it's basically the Shibuya or Shinjuku station of Seoul. And but still, like it's still worth it. The reason why it's so packed is because everyone goes here. There's a lot of foot traffic. A lot of foot traffic means opportunities to like meet people and meet girls and so forth. So this is a great area if you're living here, just because it's not so, the hustle and bustle isn't so bad compared to Hongdae is like that's a lot of partying. There's just more, Gangnam is a very unspecialized district. There's like lots of different things to do, lots of opportunities. A lot of my friends live in this area. A lot of businesses are like on the Golom and neighboring areas, so like tons of businesses and districts. So a lot of office workers and so forth. And that this area near the main street, this main street here is between Sincheon, I can say the neighborhood or like the busiest extends maybe like down to 1 station below, 1 station above. This is Nanyeon up here. So the area is like between here and here, with the concentrated density being in this general area. And the cool thing is the stations have pretty easy to understand. And if you look at the map, you can see where you're getting out of, so you're not confused. So one thing to keep in mind is that like this side of Gangnam is actually different than this side, and so forth from this side and that side. So over here, this is the main area that you probably care about if you're visiting. A lot of the bars and clubs are along this area, and a lot of them are actually open to, you know, like tourists and foreigners to like enter. And you just have to check, just ask the bouncer if they don't let foreigners go. It's probably not worth it for you to go anyways, but a lot are, I would assume, because they want your business and so forth. If they're packed, maybe they won't let you in. Hotel is actually pretty cheap, good hotel to go to if you're interested in the clubs and bars here. There are a lot of guys and girls here are, you know, like kind of like open to talking to each other. So a lot of girls get talked to by guys. Either they're trying to get the girls to go into the club or the bar, or they're just guys trying to get like, you know, numbers and, you know, dates and so forth, you know, like us and other guys. So it's honestly, it's not a good place to meet girls. I actually try to meet girls out in the streets or in between streets here, just because I like to stay away from the areas where like a lot of the Korean guys and other guys generally talk to girls, just because that's where they feel safe. So like there's more of a lot of girls there have their shields up because they're so used to guys approaching them there. And you don't want to be in that kind of area, because then the girls, when you approach girls, you kind of like are climbing up a hill. Whereas you're approaching girls here, it's much more rare, actually, even though it's actually pretty common, relatively speaking, compared to other areas in the city. But a lot of girls don't expect guys to approach them here. And you approach girls here because you're looking for a girlfriend, you're looking for a date, not specifically looking to hook up. Whereas like this club area street is mostly guys who want to hook up, girls who they expect girls who are in the club, like drinking and so forth. And I don't particularly like that, and I feel like you're really at a big disadvantage as a foreigner if you're approaching girls there, unless you're like super good looking and tall or something. But if you are trying to maximize your chances of like, you know, meeting a girl who's actually interested, I recommend the areas in between, especially girls who are just waiting around or bored or something, right? You're much more likely to get some kind of attention from a girl up in that street. And we're talking about during the night. During the day, you can still talk to girls, but a lot of them are super busy, and this street is kind of saturated with guys approaching girls. So it's a good place. There's a reason why a lot of people go here to meet girls. Just be aware that this is not, it's actually common for guys to approach girls in the street. And I see it all the time. I'm not talking about just foreigners. I mean, a lot of Korean guys actually do this too. They approach girls in the street and this general street as well. Just like you would if you go to Japan and you go to Shibuya, there's probably a bunch of guys approaching girls for various reasons, including for dating and other business prospecting. Although typically in Korea, you usually just find store representatives trying to sell something out in front of their store. Quite common. Usually they're handing out flyers, or occasionally you do get like scammers and stuff like that who are like trying to get you to a tea ceremony. And I do recommend you don't take their invitation. But yeah, so that's the side of what I call the west side of Gangnam. The east side here is mostly just restaurants, cafes, cool little activities you want to do. This is like the fun side. This is the place I would take girls for dates. There's a lot of fun things. There's a shooting range for like BB guns and archery range and so forth. Like there's I think a bowling alley too, but never gone. I heard it's not that good. There's a bunch of karaoke places here. A lot of good food here. Like I recommend Brick Oven. That's probably the best pizza in Seoul. If you want like an actual like good pizza, whereas like a lot of Korean pizza places offer potatoes on their pizza, or their ketchup is like super sweet. So the pizza is actually not very good. It's very Korean taste oriented, whereas like Brick Oven is like Americanized or Italianized pizza. So I recommend that. Pie Leaf, I've never been, but I heard it's good too. But yeah, there's just a bunch of good foreigner foods here. Like it's a great place. If you're a tourist, you want to find something unique, you could probably find it here. Or if you're looking for something that's not Korean, you can find it here. There are some Korean places here, but about say like half is not. And this is important because like over here is where you find all the Korean places. So if you want to have a Korean barbecue, you want to like, get some, I don't know, hot pot or something, like it could be here. So this is where I typically hang out with. But, when meeting girls, I go, down here as well. A lot of my friends are in this general area, so I like to go here. You'll find that like a lot more older people are in this area on average. And yeah, there's not a lot of bars. There's no clubs here. There might be bars here actually that my friends go to drink, but they're not really good mingling bars. They're not great places to meet like girls in general. Over here is more like a residential area. I've never really explored this place too much, but it's mostly residential, just like really quiet, places to go eat and so forth. So it's not a place that I recommend you even bother to explore. Up here, you get close to Sincha. Sincha is right here. Along the way is Starbucks that you should probably visit. Over here is Sincha itself. It's a great place. A lot of foot traffic, a lot of girls, almost like kind of a little bit similar to Hongdae in a way. But I would say it's more like very close to like what you find in like Hollywood or of course, Apgujeong. It's kind of the closer you get to Apgujeong, the more it feels like Apgujeong. And I'll be covering that in a little while. Let me go back to Gangnam first. So down here, it's like the same thing. It gets really quiet very quickly. There's a ton of foot traffic, so people, going to leaving Gangnam on buses and subway stations and so forth. So it's really jam-packed with people transiting between work and, or going out and shopping and so forth. But the cool thing is that there's bus stations in the middle here. So if you are getting a hotel that's not directly next to the subway, it actually might be a good thing just because the buses can take you to places that you typically can't. The only downside is the buses are really slow during rush hour. So if you're during rush hour, you're better off getting jam-packed into a subway and actually getting there on time than you are taking a bus and waiting for a ride that typically would take 30 minutes to be an hour or two. I know this because I had a date with my girlfriend a long time ago, and I took a bus from Gangnam all the way to Seoul Station, Seoul City, to go to a place. And it took me, originally it should have taken me like an hour at most to take the bus, but it took me like over 2 hours. So that's just a warning in case like you're looking to use public transportation, which I highly recommend anyways. And it's super easy to navigate, super easy to understand. Just get a card from the 7-Eleven, just ask for one of those bus cards and whatever you can load up money into. You can load up money with cash. I think maybe debit cards can work, but yeah, it's super cheap. It takes you maybe like less than $3 to go from one end of the town to another, maybe at most like $1 or $2. So it's definitely much cheaper than taxis, and I recommend using it because it's so frequent and there's so many different options for you to be able to navigate, as well as you can use Google Maps to figure out what bus and what station to go to. And even if you miss a bus that you were supposed to get onto, I'm sure there's another bus coming soon on another route that would probably take you to the same place, if not close by. So if you want to go to Itaewon and it's before buses stop running, then you can easily take a bus from like here to Itaewon. Although the taxi wouldn't be too expensive anyways. All right, so that's Gangnam, and on to Apgujeong. Not much to say Apgujeong, except for the clubs are, and I think in this street here, there's a ton of clubs in that street and bars and so forth. The only issue is that like Apgujeong is a very high-end upscale place. So there's a lot of competition in terms of other guys. And when it comes to Korea, if a guy is rich, he's going to be investing in himself and his looks more than what you expect in the average American. So if you're a lot of the rich guys typically would be tall, they'd be good looking, they might be driving supercars. So you're not dealing with like fat old white guys in America. You're competing with like tall, good looking Korean guys in this general area. That being said, the culture, I would say Apgujeong is actually better during the day when you're just walking around, there's not too much traffic. And because a lot of Korean guys don't approach as often as they do at night. At night, like it's kind of like fair game. It's kind of like a nocturnal kind of thing in that like if you're near a club, then Korean guys would approach a girl if it's kind of gives them an excuse to kind of break the cultural barriers of like approaching people. Whereas like during the day, there are groups of guys that are who are Korean that approach girls, but they're much more rare than half or quarter of the population of Korea. Whereas like most guys who are walking around probably are talking to girls here or trying to mingle with girls and so forth in this general area. But yeah, that's Apgujeong. It's very similar to Rodeo Street in Bellevue Hills, whatever you call it. There's a lot of fancy cars, a lot of high-end places here. You walk up and down, you find Lamborghinis or Ferraris and so forth, just parked randomly in places, and a bunch of like high-end clubs that might be exclusive to people, so I would definitely double check. But there's also some good places here. I recommend the Taco Booth. It has some pretty good tacos actually, and I think there's a couple other places here I recommend too. But it's generally not a bad place to visit. Like I said, recommend during the day to come visit, see it for yourself, and walk around and talk to girls. Honestly, for me, I don't think it's a great place for me to actually go. There's probably better places elsewhere in Seoul for me to meet girls, but it's an option. And a lot of my friends who live in Gangnam would rather go here than Itaewon. Even though it's probably harder here, they're just more attractive girls here than there are in Gangnam. As for other places to mention, so COEX Mall is a cool mall here, I think, yeah. See, it's right here? No, it's right here. Yeah, okay. Right here is, no, that's not it. Where is it? Where's COEX Mall? So Gangnam Station is right here. So the COEX should be right here. Okay. Sorry. Starfield Mall, COEX Mall, whatever you call it. It's right here. It's huge. There's a lot of foot traffic. There's a lot of cafes, a lot of bookstores and so forth you can go into to talk to girls. So I recommend here. Another place I recommend is the Taco Villa Guerrero, which is actually one of the best taco places in Korea. I'm not in Seoul, so I recommend that. This is a great place to visit if you're a tourist or even if you want to meet girls. And yeah, it's not too uncommon. There's Korean guys that do this too. They go out and talk to girls in the malls here. Another place would be a little further from Gangnam, but not too far, is the Jamsil area. There's like Lotte World, which you can take girls on dates, or if you're a tourist, you can go there. I took a Chinese girl out there for a date and made out on all the rides we went on. It was super fun, cool experience. She dressed up as a schoolgirl. She was like mid-20s actually, but I probably should have dressed up as a school guy. Would have been fun. But yeah, there's a big mall here, underground area between the station and the mall that connects, and you can just explore the walking path. There's tons of Korean guys that go here, especially during the winter, to meet girls, and you'll probably see it if you have a good eye. Just so in case you're thinking like, oh, no one approaches anyone in Korea. No, that was the case, I'd say, maybe a few years ago. But it's starting to change just because there's a growing movement of guys who are looking to move girls, which is a good thing because, Korea is, facing a population downtrend anyways. So this is I think it's a good movement to kind of, get guys to date more, get girls to maybe like get more couples, more marriages and so forth in Korea. So I think it's a good direction for Korea to go into. Another place I can mention is Hongdae. I think I don't know how you pronounce this, but like there's like Konkuk University is another area, not too similar from Hongdae. It's a college area, so there's a lot of cafes here, a lot of really trendy food places like poke bars, and I think there's a Chinatowns around here, so you might have some like hot pots and China-oriented venues and so forth. Um, but yeah, a very up and coming place. Not under Probably an underrated place to meet girls. I've gone here once in a while, but never like really seriously talked to girls here. But I can see it being a decent place. And then it's like untouched by foreigners, so like not a lot of foreigners go here. So it's if you're a foreigner, then it might be a good idea to go here just to check it out and actually be different. And if you talk to girls here, it might be easier to talk to girls here than elsewhere. That's kind of a funny phenomenon, and like the situation that girls in and like where they are actually kind of dictates like your value as a guy. If you talk to a girl in this area, and like your value as a guy is much lower, just because there's tons of other guys that they're probably talking to those girls too. So they don't see you as like talking to a girl. You're not considered brave. Like you consider like this is like kind of expected, right? So whereas like you talk to a girl in a cafe and like like in a different area, at a different time during the day, and you're actually charming, you're actually like starting a good conversation with the girl, she's more likely gonna like be more attracted to you than say you meet her at night in the street or something, next to a club or bar. So that's something to keep in mind when you're out and about exploring Seoul and other places in the world. But okay, so yeah, so I showed you Gangnam, Apgujeong, Itaewon, of course, in Hongdae. But yeah, in general, if you're a tourist looking to party and visit Seoul, I recommend Itaewon and Hongdae. Get a hotel Airbnb near the subway stations, just so mass transit is a very big plus for Seoul, so you should take advantage of it. It's super cheap, super fast, and being close to a subway station reduces your time to walk there. So obviously, like you want to do that, and plus running dates is easier. Typically, girls that go on a date with you you should invite them to your area, and you should meet them at a subway exit, so it's easy to figure out where to go. You can talk to her there. If for some reason you got catfish, which I think is very rare in Korea, you can always like break it off at the station, not waste your money. And then of course you can, after you meet her there, you can go to a cafe, and you can go to like a restaurant and so forth. And I'll talk about this more in another video. But yeah, about how to run dates. But it should be fairly simple, and try to find something cheap. For those living in Seoul, I recommend either Hongdae or Gangnam, more so Gangnam. You might end up having to live in Gangnam just because a lot of the hagwons and the employment opportunities for English teachers are in Gangnam. Although there are some in Hongdae, but a majority is in Gangnam. And then of course you don't have to actually live there, but maybe you. But for guys living there, I recommend Airbnb over hotels. I recommend this in any area unless you're just looking to meet girls through nightlife. If you're meeting girls through dating, I recommend Airbnbs just because it's easier for you to convince a girl to come to your Airbnb by saying it's your place. She thinks you're living there, which I would hope you are. You give a girl a better impression than you're a tourist, you're going to leave like tomorrow. So she's more willing to invest in spending time with you. Whereas like you go to a hotel, like, oh, it's a hotel. It's like one big room. There's a bed there. So it's really easy for her to kind of like understand what you want, and be scared about what you're trying to get her to do. Whereas like it's more platonic to invite a person over to your Airbnb. You have things to cook. Typically, I invite guys over to my place, right? I'm not going to, and not everyone I invite over, I'm trying to bone, right? So like there's it's more easier for her to come to your place in Airbnb than it is for a hotel. And I've known this firsthand in terms of running dates and trying to get girls to my hotel versus an Airbnb. So I recommend doing that. A couple of things is in terms of where Airbnbs are great. There's a ton. There used to be a lot more, but there are some next to Exit One, which I think are great options for, especially if you're a tourist, just because it's right next to the main big station. There's a lot of foot traffic around here. I met a bunch of dates and girls in this area, and you're really close to COEX, so it's a great area. The only downside is running dates here is a little awkward. because you're just so close to where you're running dates. Like a lot of the good venues are in this right next to Exit One, in that same building. But it's kind of weird to like take a girl to that same building you're, taking her on a date, and then suddenly just going up the elevator. It's just too quick, and like she's like, oh, you pre-planned this, right? So a lot of the girls who like think that you're like, going too fast if like your venue is just if your home venue is really close to the venue you took the girl on a date on. So there should be more walking. So I recommend. So there's other Airbnbs down the street here. If you can get them and they get a good price, those are good too. One thing to keep in mind is that there's a bus station here or a bus stop. So if you feel like you're too far from the station, that's okay because there's buses you can just take instead as a different option. And the walk isn't really that big of a deal. If most of the time you're going to go north and south, so you want to go to Myeongdong, you want to go Itaewon, even Hongdae is technically north. So everything you want to go up and north and south rather than east and west. East and west, you might want to go to COEX Mall or Jamsil, and you can take the station with that, the subway station, and the walk to the subway station is probably a few minutes to 10 minutes, and then the ride itself is probably another 10 minutes or so forth. So it's not like it's a big hassle to go from like the bus station area to the subway station. Another area I forgot about is the COEX area, the terminal bus station area is what we call it. But there's a big mall area on this side. This is less likely for you to see foreigners, and there's less. It's more for locals, but also a lot of the Japanese tourists and Japanese girls actually come here to shop, just because the underground little mall area has a lot of cute shops, which has a lot of cheap clothing for women. So if you want to meet Japanese girls in Korea, I actually recommend this area. You see like a lot of pairs of Korean girls and Japanese girls shopping here, and I recommend it because it's so close to like the Gangnam area. So if you're living in Gangnam, this is an area I recommend. If you're like in Itaewon or in Hongdae, don't recommend going here just for that. Instead, actually, if you want to meet Japanese and Chinese girls, I recommend going to Myeongdong, which is a super touristy area, but still a great area to meet different girls. One thing to keep in mind with Korea is that like a lot of the tourism in Korea is more from other Asian countries like Japan and China than it is from like Western countries. So yeah, Mongolian girls here. I've met Mongolian girls, met Chinese girls, Japanese girls here as well, especially during the summer when tourism really picks up. So I recommend this area. There's a lot of walking places of like nightlife, and like, I wouldn't say nightlife, but like food vendors and so forth outside. So great option for you to go to explore. Another thing is like there's a bunch of really jam-packed skincare places, like all of the options to like go into and like go do shopping, and then maybe if you bump into a girl you find attractive, you can probably say hi to her and so forth. Which leads to, let's see here. Okay, so a couple of things overall with Seoul and like Korea, this can apply to any city really, is Daisos are great for meeting girls. Daisos are a little different than what you probably find in the US. In the US, Daisos are for knickknacks and like random stuff. But in Korea and probably other parts of Asia, Daiso is more of a general like anything store, like a kind of a mini I wouldn't say grocery store, but like kind of a mini Walmart or Target, where like anything you need for like household items like laundry, baskets, like kitchenware, silverware, detergent, laundry, towels, like the random like durable goods you are looking for to kind of like fill out your house, in the place you're staying at is located in Daiso. And Daiso has like almost everything. Like it's hard to not find things in Daiso. So if you need cheap things like chargers and stuff like that, converters, Daiso is the place to go to. Another thing is if you want to meet girls, Daiso is actually a pretty good place to meet girls. Daiso, I'd say next to the Gangnam station here, has been really, really good. I've gone into it just to shop for things, and like I end up like meeting like 2 or 3 interesting girls and having fun conversations there. Honestly, Daiso is probably better at meeting girls than like a club. And you're not paying anything to go into Daiso. Obviously, it's harder to hook up with girls than Daiso, but it's easier to get dates, easier to get numbers. So I recommend going to shopping to Daiso and like figuring out. And then any girl you see there you want to talk to, just talk to her, right? Another thing, a very similar boat is Olive Young, like I mentioned. Olive Young in the Gangnam area is great, and Hongdae is great. Um, and yeah, and it's everywhere too. Olive Young is very popular. There's many different floors. Um, like there guys have a reason to be in Olive Young as well. I go to Olive Young to buy like skincare. I don't have great skin, as you can see, so I try to figure out ways to better manage it, or any products I find it more interesting to kind of take care of my acne and so forth. So I do go to Olive Young to actually shop. But when I'm there, like there's girls I can talk to who are there's a lot of Korean girls, also non-Korean girls, and I think non-Korean girls in Olive Young are more likely to like entertain you, talk to them, but still like there's a lot of opportunities for you to meet Korean girls in Olive Young, and it's everywhere in Korea and Gangnam Station and the other parts of the town that you probably want to visit. Another thing is subway stations, malls. Like she mentioned, COEX, Jamsil, from a bus station. Any mall in Korea typically is decent for meeting girls, but those three are the best for meeting girls. There's malls in Myeongdong as well, but it's not as good. It's okay, and it's right next to Myeongdong. So if you're there anyways, you could probably visit, but I wouldn't go directly to the malls there. Outside is probably better. Another place is actually subway stations are great, especially Gangnam Station. Gangnam Station's subway station is probably the best just because there's like a little area to like walk around. There's a bunch of restaurants, cafes underground here that you can go to. You can probably see the pathway where the exits and stations, and it goes all the way down to like here or something. I don't know, but it's very big. It's like its own mall. So a lot of the girls I've dated, I've met a couple of times within the station itself, if not like nearby. So I recommend this area. I think I met like a K-pop ex trainee who is like super hot, super cute, just like right next to Exit One here. So it definitely is a great place to talk to girls, and yeah, it's much cheaper. It's free. You can go almost any time of the day to go. You don't have to wait for nighttime. You have to pay a cover charge. So I recommend doing that. There are cafes. Cafes, I think if you sit down nearby a girl, you can like say hi. Maybe you can like start a conversation if she doesn't look too busy. Just be indirect and like be really casual. If you talk to a girl, my friend who's a dating coach recommends you talk to the girl as she's leaving. So it's a little easier to catch her as she's leaving than it is for you to like talk to her, especially if she's like with friends. If she's with friends, obviously it's harder for you to like talk to her one-on-one because she's in the spotlight. A lot of friends are going to be judging her if you're up talking to her. So she's going to be more embarrassed and shy if you talk to her in front of her friends than if you were to talk to her by herself or something. And yeah, with cafes, there's a few that aren't great and a few are, and that would vary. I say Starbucks are pretty good just because there's a lot of people in Starbucks. It's very loud. It's not uncommon to see people working in cafes. If they're working in cafes instead of like mingling with friends, it's more likely they'll be interested in having a quick conversation with you. Um, yeah, in terms of like when to come over, I recommend anytime between April and November. After November, it gets kind of chilly and cold. Uh, Probably mid-November is like cutoff point. Summers are super hot, but just because super hot doesn't mean like you can't go out and just use sunblock. I'm comfortable with super hot, so it's okay for me. But the winters are brutally cold, and with brutally cold winter it means less foot traffic. That means it's harder to talk to a girl out in the street and outside, just because it's so cold they want to go inside. So I do recommend you avoid coming to Korea in the winter, and if you do live in Korea in winter, like figure out a plan to like maybe leave during the winter to like explore different countries during the time, which is what my friend and I typically do. Um, Another thing to keep in mind is there's a lot of meetups, language exchange parties in Japan. There's a company called GSM Global Soulmates that I've gone to a lot. Although it seems like it's better to go on the weekdays when there's less people, even if there's less girls, just because the conversation is just so much better. When it gets too loud, it's like hard to talk to anyone, and typically the type of people that show up to the weekend parties are not very interesting. it's just a different vibe, and I prefer the vibe during weekdays. It's more intimate, and it's a shy guy. It's easier to kind of dominate the conversation and like find and meet girls during the weekdays. But I think it's worth it if you're going there for like a couple hours. But it's not a good substitute for going out to meet girls, right? You'll figure out there's downsides to going to meetups, right? Meetups are great because a lot of the girls speak English, so you kind of filter for that. But the downside is like there's a terrible ratio. Obviously, there's usually like a 6-to-1 guy to girl ratio, and a lot of the girls are looking for foreigner guys. So if you're an Asian guy, it might not be great, which is fine because I do eventually find girls that are into foreigner guys. I met a Korean girl that was into like Filipino guys, and I guess I passed for a Filipino guy, so it worked out for me. And yeah, so yeah, don't like it's not great, and like you should be going out to talk to guys. Talk to girls. But if you want to talk to guys too, which I feel like is a great place to meet friends and stuff like that, and network and so forth. And maybe you're selling something targeting guys, then it's a great place to go to as well. There's one Hongdae for GSM, but also many different clubs around. I wouldn't say clubs, but like many different meetups around Itaewon, Hongdae, and so forth. You can go on meetup.com to find it. And yeah, it's a good opportunity to like meet people. And if you're going traveling to Korea alone or just one other friend, it's a great place to go to find other friends to link up with and then go out and party with them and mingle and so forth. So it's a great place to also learn a little Korean as well. Although a lot of the time you're just speaking English, so as a foreigner you're not getting much Korean out of it. But yeah, there are like certain times I think GSM does like a language tutoring 1 or 2 hour time. So if you're looking to learn some Korean, it's actually not a bad place. And all you have to do is like pay like man or 10,000, which is like $7 for a 1 or 2 hour lesson, which is actually cheaper than online lessons. And you actually probably learn a lot better being in person. Yeah, so that's a lot of information about where to meet girls in Korea. It's a great thing I didn't talk about dating and other aspects and like, the dynamics of like approaching girls in Korea, because that probably taken another 30 minutes and this video has been like an hour long so far. So yeah, that's all information I could pack in today's video. And yeah, subscribe and like if you like the information, comment if you have any questions. You can DM me as well. I do run a community for helping guys meet girls in Asia, and then how to basically code approach, meet girls, have a good dating app. So if you want to join, it should be in the description. And yeah, if you feel like there's anything I can improve in the video, feel free to give your feedback in the comments. And I'm always looking, reading, and listening. Thank you. Bye.